Welcome to another Dawgs video. Here we are. We got the dogs right here. We got me, Ben.
What's going on? I'm Seth. I'm Sanji right now, as you can tell. This is my Captain Luffy.
I got my captain hat right now, ready to go. So we're gonna do a One Piece video, and we're gonna rate our favorite, in our opinion, our favorite One Piece villains of the East Blue Saga. That's going to vary up to the first 1 to 100 chapters of the series in the manga. And then that's, for episode-wise, that's about 1 to 53 episodes. Episode 1 to 53. We're going to go into details of like why we like this villain. And then we're going to have, at the end of the video, we'll do a big list of all 8 villains. And that's going to include villains from each arc, the main villain, and then 2 supplementary villains, I would say, antagonists of the series. We're going to be including Mihawk in this list and Smoker. Technically, Smoker is the main villain of Lockdown. Talk more about it when we get into that part. So right now, let's just do a refresher. I am a One Piece advocate. I love One Piece. I think it's the greatest fictional story known to man. I've watched the series since it was out in the early before the 2000s. I want to say it was out in 2000, but it was a 4Kids dub. I remember
before I was born.
Yeah, that's how old the series is, and it's still going today. That's why it to me is one of the greater fictional series, greatest in my opinion, fictional series of all time. You're traveling around the world and living up to your dreams. How about you, Seth? How have you been liking the series? I know that it's a new series for you, and you just recently got past Logtown. So, like, if you want to let the viewers know where you're at right now in the series, or go in details, like how you've been liking it.
So far, so good. I really like it. I'm currently, I don't know, Nami's sick, and
like, what's the island like? I probably...
The island doesn't have a name.
Okay. It's snowy?
Yes.
All right.
Snow Island is what Luffy said.
Snow Island. All right.
Nami is currently on Luffy's back, and they're climbing up the mountain to find the witch.
The witch doctor.
The witch doctor. Right?
Yeah.
Yes. Who is like Santa Claus. That's where I'm at in the story. So far, so good. Really like it. Overall, East Blue Saga, fantastic. And in my opinion, it just kept getting better and better.
Other anime series that you got into, and their introduction of their first big arcs and stuff that you know now, like what they were. Where does the East Blue Saga rank for that?
It's up there, but it's hard to say because
it takes a while to get into.
And it's multiple arcs.
It's multiple arcs built into a saga.
Yeah, multiple villains, arcs. It's not like the Land of Waves in Naruto where it's an arc and it's for 60 episodes or 50
for Dragon Ball Z, it would be the Saiyan Saga.
Yeah, the Saiyan Saga. It's like a little bit of Saiyan Saga, a little bit of Namek, a little bit of Cell.
And they add more, but
into a big overall saga. So I like it, but it's hard to compare to others. But the highs are really, really high. I'll say that.
And you're only early on in the series, so there's a lot more to go forward from there.
Yes.
So let's start us off. Okay, so you're in Romance Dawn. You're in the first arc, and you're just 3 chapters long. It's really slow. Main villain of that. There's 2 villains in that time period. The first villain that you're introduced to is Alvida, who you get introduced to her later on in Lockdown also. So having both that's the first main villain that you're really truly introduced to, and Luffy fights her and pretty much one-shots her with just
not a lot.
Boom.
Not a lot to it.
So in what are some things about Alvida that characterize her, that your opinion, where you feel about her? And yeah, you can go in characteristic zones and stuff like that. You can go into details of pros and cons as a villain itself, how she played out.
Characteristic. Well, she's full of it, for one. She just kind of wants to be surrounded by people who are gonna, praise her, and she's very, very egotistical and ugly. We also have to include post Devil Fruit.
Yeah, up the Lockdown,
which I do like a lot more. I'll say she seems more cunning and smart and just overall. She seems more locked in.
She fits more into the role that she was in the beginning because of what?
She just seems more like a threat. Simply.
Because of the devil fruit that she ate later on in the series. And her joining Buggy and everything.
Yes.
Which is a weird dynamic. She fights with like her big huge spear, and then she also has the devil fruit, the slip fruit, which helps smooth her skin.
I think it's a smooth.
No, it's slip fruit is what they would call it in the English dub version.
Okay.
It just pretty much makes her body like pretty much slippery. That's why she has smooth skin and everything, and her whole facial structure has changed.
She can slide around on her feet.
Yeah, she's quick.
Yeah.
And she also fights with like a mace club kind of style. That's her like main weapon of choice.
Does she still have the mace after her devil fruit?
It's a valuable weapon. I mean, it's a basic weapon choice. It's for me like as a person like that's almost a two-handed weapon in my opinion. And if you want to get full momentum to like swing with full power, I don't know. You're effective if you hit the person, but you gotta be able to be either quick enough or stun the person at least decent enough to actually do something.
Off rip, I didn't like Alvida. Pre-Devil Fruit Alvida, 3 out of 10. Post-Devil Fruit, so far from what I've seen in the East Blue Saga. In terms of personal preference, because it's what this whole video is about. It's like what we like. 5, 6 straw hats out of 10.
Okay.
Here's what Alvida is. An introduction to kind of give you a little bit of exposition. Tell you a little bit about, are you Zoro? Fucking the pirate hunter?
Yeah.
And then,
Colby and everything.
Yeah, you get Colby. I want to be king of the pirates. I want to be a marine.
The cabin boy.
Their dreams, that's it. She's just that. Post Devil Fruit, I believe she's much more interesting, much more captivating. And I actually kind of care about what she has going on now. Alliance with Buggy is interesting too. Mm-hmm. And when their alliance.
Yep.
Buggy wants to kill Luffy, but if I remember correctly, in Logtown, Alvida said she wants to marry.
Was it clip?
I'm pretty sure.
All right.
So they have completely different goals, which is weird, but yes.
With that being said, we'll go to the other villain in that same arc, Romance Dawn, that you're introduced early on, which is Captain Morgan, Axe Hand Morgan. There's another character later on we're probably going to talk about that interlines with Captain Morgan. Captain Morgan, to me, he's another egotistical villain, like all about himself, to a point where he has a stone-built statue.
I actually forgot about
on top of his base to really show like I am the guy here. He fights with like the basic, like his name, Axe Hand Morgan. He fights with his axe hand. He's out there slicing and dicing.
Weird pointy elbow.
Yeah, big structured guy, huge. I mean, yeah, we got the metal chin, which I'll definitely talk more about later on. He's pretty much a tyrant. He's like very like military-like, but he wants to be a dictator. Other than that, like the main fight with him and Luffy, like it was a little bit of like Zoro helping in, but like other than that, it was another like very easy fight for Luffy to overcome.
We'll go over the list later. I have Axe Hand Morgan probably overrated and pretty high on my list, but the thing about Axe Hand Morgan is, for me, it was the first actual, which Luffy did dispatch of him relatively quickly. He still felt like the actual first real threat of the series. The first person who actually had like some real serious power. And I don't mean that as in like fighting power. I mean like you said, he had a giant statue of himself. So like he has like power in terms of that.
Like military power.
Yeah,
like, it's not just him you're fighting the rest of the Navy.
And character design, in terms of comparing it to Alvida, who we went over, character design, better. I don't know, I just feel like, for me, it was the first where it's like, okay, this is what One Piece is more gonna be, like, help set the Marines up to be something more of a threat long term, and, like, it's pretty much the introductory to the Marines, I would say. It's also the first time you see Luffy and Zoro work together, so that's cool, too. Makes him more iconic, in my opinion.
Yeah. And like you said, very straightforward. Another villain comes right in, get introduced to him. You learn his personality early on, and you see Luffy interact with the villain very early on, and villain's taken care of. Pretty much same old, same old. I can see where you like him because he does like have that cool like dictatorship where he is in that room with Zoro, talking to Zoro about a deal. Like, hey, you sit on there for like I think it was 21 days with no food or water, and we'll let you free with no charge or nothing. You'll be all right. And then he knew at the end of the day he was going to backstab Zoro from the beginning. Like he had that planned out, which is smart on his part.
And fucked up. Pretty villainy.
Yep. With that being said, and we move on to Orange Town, I have this guy pretty high up. Like as a character, a villain, and I'm only basing this off of these Blue Saga. I have him high up because when you first introduced to him, you are brought into a more of a bigger flashback with him as like he brings in Luffy's longtime role model and hero Shanks and the Straw Hat, and the Straw Hat gives like Buggy some PTSD for seeing that. And that's what enlightens me, in my opinion. He's like sees Luffy and he thinks he sees like a young Shanks or something.
That is a very good point that I kind of overlooked, is the fact that him and Shanks have that connection. And that's how Buggy ate the devil fruit to begin with.
Yeah. I also like going to that point, Buggy being introduced as the first other devil fruit user, the first villain that has a devil fruit that you're going to be introduced to. Big scene right here, like a devil fruit on devil fruit battle. Which, going into that point, Buggy has the chop fruit, which lets him pretty much separate any part of his body at any time. So he's invincible to slices. Like, he can't be sliced up. And he can fly. Like, that's pretty cool. Like, with his limbs, like, he can float and stuff and everything, which is pretty nice. I did like their fight when Luffy first fights Buggy. It does kind of take, like, teamwork to beat him up and everything, but, like, they are very smart. Like, they make all his limbs, tie him up, and then Luffy does the same old, like he did to Alvida. Gong Gong Bazooka, and just launched him out of there. And he was very tiny, had to get all his limbs, gets back to his crew, becomes the captain again, and then meets Luffy in Logtown. Almost gets what he wishes there when he gets up on top of the execution table. Luffy, and Luffy's like, well, that's all, folks. And boom, Buggy almost had him right there. Then lightning strikes and Luffy's saved. So with that being said, Seth, where is Buggy for you as a villain?
Buggy, for me, as a villain, he's alright. He's cool, I guess. Generally, as a character, I enjoy Buggy, though. I just, like, okay, if I'm ranking him based on where I rank him compared to other villains, he's going to be low on my list. I'm never bored when Buggy's on screen. Always a very entertaining character. And
very loud.
He's the comedic relief, you know what I mean? He's that guy.
To me, him and Luffy are like quite similar, but the only thing different is like I think Buggy's more cowardly.
Yes.
And Luffy has more courage.
Yeah. Buggy is fake brave. He's a wimp. Powerful. No idea. I have no idea, but I have a feeling.
Yeah, because you're still early on in the series, so you know.
I'm just past the East Blue, pretty much. I have a feeling Buggy isn't like all evil. I don't know. Who knows? He could fucking turn out to be a villain still later on, but I have a feeling he's more gonna sway to like a gray. You know what I mean?
Like in the middle.
Yeah, like
a vigilante.
Almost, I guess. I don't know. I like Buggy, man. He cool. Can't hate on Buggy, but
all right.
He's alright.
With that being said, like you're introduced to Buggy, you get reintroduced. It's pretty nice, and I like that he's the first one of the. I think he's the first character that you're reintroduced in the series as the villain multiple times in the saga right there in East Blue.
I will say I really liked. I don't know if it was like half semi filler, the little
Oh,
the
yeah.
little mini arc where Buggy and I don't remember his name, but the guy in the fucking chest.
Gaimon.
Yeah, where him and Buggy hung out when it was little Buggy. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna lie, I really.
And Buggy wanted him to join the crew.
And yeah, Buggy was actually like, that's what I mean. Like as a villain, I'm like, he's alright. But as a character, I'm like, this guy's pretty cool. He's funny. I don't think he's all evil necessarily. You know what I mean? But he definitely don't.
I can see a lot of that.
He don't like Luffy. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, hands down. Next arc is Syrup Village. You're introduced to who, in my opinion, the most craftiest villain early on, and at that point, truly, in my opinion, the most psychotic. Like he really had this strategy planned out years in advance, and just wanted to take over this whole town as a highly successful butler, I would say. So the next villain we're gonna go over is Kiro. Oh yeah, got him. You know what he's about to do right there. With that,
I have no idea what is he about to do right there.
He's got his claws probably right to the ground, and he's about to do a full swipe like that.
Oh,
he's very calm and intelligent, in my opinion. Kiro is like throughout that whole Syrup Village when you're first introduced to him, that he's very calm. He's like he knows like Usopp is technically telling the truth about him and everything, and he's still playing it off like, oh, you're gonna bully me as your butler. I've taken care of you, Kaya, for 10 years whenever you were a little kid, and are you gonna believe the neighborhood liar? And like pretty much that's where he's at. He's very intelligent with his strategies, plans his things out, planned how to take over the whole village. Had his whole pirate crew. He was a pirate beforehand, retired, became a butler. What more can you say? The man has some of the best footwork out there. I mean, he could probably cross people up. I don't know how tall he is. Probably over 6 foot.
He seems pretty tall.
So like, dude, put him as a shooting guard, point guard. He might be traveling. But he's getting that ball down. I don't even know if they even see his footwork. Like he's stealthy and quick. I'll let you take it over from here, where your opinion about Kiro is and how you personally feel about him.
So, I like Kiro. Don't get me wrong. He's different from every previous villain so far. They've all been like, sort of like very egotistical, and I'm sure fucking he is as well. But he seems much different from all the other previous villains, and I do like that. I will say, fantastic villain, really good. Evil, sadistic, manipulative, weird, creepy,
double face. And
yes,
he's
actor.
He's like being
Grammy.
He's being someone who he's really not, just to fake it out as long as possible.
Yes, he is.
And I also want to bring it up because I brought it up earlier on in the video about another character why I didn't really. Kiro is smart to the point where he strategized his downfall of a pirate to be a butler. Like he strategized this in advance. And it was so cool that he made Captain Morgan. So not really him. Part of his crewmate, Django, the hypnotized Captain Morgan, thinking that, hey, you just captured the real Kiro. Kiro get to live life as a butler for the next so on and so years until the Straw Hats come to the town. Which, in my opinion, this was Luffy's real first fight. Like, all right, you're not fighting somebody. You're fighting a former captain of a pirate crew that was very well known in the East Blue. Not like you're fighting Buggy or Captain Morgan or Alvita, who were, in my opinion, early on, not really big threats.
Yeah.
Kiro was that big threat to me. Like, oh man, how's Luffy gonna be able to do that? Which ends up Luffy just used his brain and his rubber ability and just said gum gum Gatling. And just here he is shooting 100 punches per second at a guy that's trying to juke him out with his footwork and just get cracked.
If I'm not mistaken, I'd say Syrup Village was probably the first arc where it got pretty hairy for a minute there. It was generally the most danger I'd say all the Straw Hats were in, maybe. I don't know if it's crazy to say that. I'm trying to think about what really happened in Orangetown, but
I do like his claws.
they're cool.
That was a cool weapon design, in my opinion. Like, and then I liked how like throughout his whole time he never like he always did this, even when he had his like regular butler hands and stuff.
Yeah. That
Just to
was
show
cool
that he
detail.
never like lost sight of his like claws as a saint.
Yeah, that was cool. I like that. That was a cool detail. Made him pretty like.
I think his pirate crew was like called the Black Cats. Black Cat Pirate Crew.
Probably explain why he had claws.
Yeah.
Like Edward Scissorhands. But I mean, yeah,
he was good. He was in my opinion.
I really liked him, but
I think like both they did a good job in the live action also with him. In my opinion, I think he was a very good character.
Yeah.
I think they kind of ruined not having Django.
We'll talk about somebody coming up who really should have been in the series.
Oh yeah. Well, he was, but not as long as he should have been.
Yeah.
And with that being said, we'll go into our next character, and in my opinion, very underrated. I can see it like how a lot of people can say he's very underrated. Here we are. Look at the face of this psychopath. Another one. Egotistical man.
I like this guy.
Don Creed. What can you say about him? Very greedy, arrogant about himself. Thinks he's almighty in his own opinion. He fights with money, pretty much. He buys the best equipment you can have, so then he doesn't have to worry about anything. That gold-plated armor that he has so many abilities. He has bombs on him, has guns. He even has that cool like spear weapon that's like explosive. It takes out anybody from like within a distance and everything. This man was already to the Grand Line and came back to East Blue to like settle down here, and he was well known in East Blue as a big threat. He had not just one pirate ship, but he had a fleet that was decimated before coming back to the East Blue, just barely getting to the East Blue alive and starving, and then getting refueled back up to fight. That was pretty amazing to watch. Like, and the whole Barate arc, I like the build up of Don Creed. You're introduced to him early on. He's a big threat, and the way that whole fight spilled out on like two different aspects of fighting, in my opinion. One fights with money, one fights with just pure like, I'm just going to keep punching until something breaks. There's some things that kind of puts him down a little bit for me because of other villains that are introduced and getting reintroduced also.
Yeah.
So where's Don Creed mean to you as a villain, and his personality, his characteristic help build him up?
Personally, I feel like they did a better job of hyping up Don Creed over a shorter amount of time, if I'm not mistaken, than any other villain compared to all the previous ones. So, and it was very effective for me personally. It worked. I was like genuinely like, oh, shit's about to go down. The only thing is, it is kind of sorry when you see him pull up and he's in rough shape, begging. Like, it instantly puts him down when you're like, this guy isn't.
Yeah,
this guy can't be that bad. Like, can't be that much of a threat. And then after Sanji does end up feeding him, he's a menace, and everything that transpires. And yeah, I really like Don Creed personally. He's high on my list. I think his fight with Luffy was the whole Luffy fighting around water is always sketchy, which to show about pirates.
With devil fruits that have like the ability to lose the ability to swim.
It's always gonna be sketchy, and it's probably gonna happen often. For me, that was the first time I was like, okay, Luffy could very well fucking get thrown in some water here.
I do remember like Don Creed also fights with like gas, which was a big issue there early on in the fight. And Don Creed is like one of those guys like he doesn't really care about his pirate crew. Like he'll like let them die if they have to out there.
Yeah, that was my thing too. Is that made him feel very, very, like
he's all about himself.
Very, very stereotypically villainous. Personally, I don't know if that ranks a villain higher or lower for me when they are dishonorable, I guess, like that. But I don't know. I guess it just depends on how it's done and how it's presented.
All right. So let's go into we can this is our first character we're going to introduce as not really a villain, but like introduced as a high up character that you want to talk about him as a villain. And he's the first warlord you are seeing, not introduced to, but you physically see first. He does have a cool character design, in my opinion. Very mysterious, very solemn to himself, humbled, not really like arrogant about his skills or anything, and lets his skills do most of the talking. That's what you pretty much are introduced. Seth, I know you got some things you want to talk about Dracula Mihawk. You're a big fan of him. Let it all out.
He's cool. He's by far the coolest. Character design, mysterious, how powerful he is. You wonder a lot about him as soon as you see him. You wonder a lot. You hear about him and Don Krieg's whole thing. And then not only that, when Luffy finally gets his bounty, his 30 million bounty, his first bounty, he goes to show it to Shanks, and you see that a little bit. And that also put him higher up on my list because that was cool. I don't know if I like honor in a villain or if I don't, but, and I'm using the term villain very loosely for Mihawk, but I like Mihawk's honor. I like it. It's cool. He seems cool, and I'm just past Thieves Blue Saga. I cannot wait for their reunion.
All right.
For one, and
Zoro to be that guy.
Yeah, and I cannot wait
Which is cool. Like, he sees that in his eyes. He knows, like, he's playing for a dream. And that...
It makes it very interesting. He fucking beat Zoro with a blade that big.
I know.
So...
humiliating.
It was pretty... Yeah, it was bad. And it also spawned my favorite Zoro moment so far.
All right. With that being said, we're going to move on to the arc. And a lot of people's opinion early on is the most impactful. It hits you at the heart. And in my opinion, that's mainly because of the villain, the main villain of that arc alone. And that's because it's really... So the only arc, if you actually look early on, the only arc literally named after the villain himself. Yeah. And that villain is first new like species that you're introduced to. It's the Fishman. And his name is Arlong. And he's I think, egotistical to the point that he's all the way up to the top. He's
racist.
He is racist. The racist towards human, hates anything to do with the human race.
And he's spitting. They are
cruel.
You know, they are superior beings, I suppose, but you know, nothing to be a fucking dick about it.
Arlong, to me, you're introduced to my opinion, the biggest threat. Like, you're introduced to somebody that can't just fight on land with you. But if you get in water, you are losing.
You're done.
Yeah. And with Luffy...
Your big brain like Sanji.
Yeah. With Luffy being a devil fruit user, he's screwed.
Nightmare matchup.
Yeah.
Nightmare matchup.
So that's what you're thinking, like, early on. You're like, oh, man, this character's built up. And with, like... Seth, I'll let you take it from here. Because I know you want to talk about the impact that Arlong brings up early on to get to that build-up of the fight with Luffy. And why that fight is so impactful, and it makes him a much more popular villain than a lot of people would give out. And he's, in my opinion, one of those type of villains that you're introduced in a series early on that fits the role of like, like this is the final boss.
Yes,
like of an arc.
Yeah, I agree. He definitely. Okay. There's a lot to talk about with Arlong that I like Ben touched on. He is the first of a different like species. Arlong Park was by far my favorite arc of the East Blue Saga. Nothing really came like that close emotionally, I would say. And I would say this is a scenario where the backstory adds to how villainous Arlong is. Getting everything, how Arlong pulled up to the village, which I know you got that for all the other characters, but something about it being Nami, who's now a member of the Straw Hats.
Yeah, after leaving, like after technically being a member, but then betraying them, taking their pirate ship, the Going Merry, and then betraying them.
Yes, yeah. So you see the situation,
but not really betraying them because of the money that she was trying to save up for the village to buy back the village, so Arlong would leave. but got double crossed at the end of the day. And then you see her in that scene where she's weeping like there's no hope, and she has no friends. And Luffy doesn't even know what's really going on.
No.
But Luffy just pretty much gives her the straw hat, puts it on her, and just like lets her.
Yeah, like we got it from here.
Don't worry about it. Your problem's my problem, and then I'm going to take care of your problem.
Yes. Everything coming from Nami's perspective, it hits and it adds. Nami as a character just simply adds to Arlong as a character. Makes him worse. Everything, Nami's whole life is because of Arlong. And that was a lot on Nami. She had to deal with a lot, I would say.
Yeah, losing her mom.
Lost her mom. Had to join him. So that way she,
had to write maps, make maps out.
Yeah, it was rough. And
this man's starting a sweatshop early on.
Yeah, pretty much.
With only one worker.
One worker. Trying to map out everything. Throughout the entire arc, Arlong Park, he says multiple times, when it comes to money, I'm a man of my word. When it comes to money, I'm a man of my word. Something along those lines. And then the way he ends up betraying Nami, despite everything, you know what I mean? Leading to the emotional scene. It hits. And it's one of the first times throughout the series where you're like genuinely mad at a villain through your TV screen. You know what I mean? Where you're like, that's messed up, bro. Like that's wrong. Which, I mean, yeah. The stuff Kiro did, absolutely terrible. Maybe worse, you know what I mean? Yeah. But still, something about Arlong Park just hit different.
Oh yeah. And then that builds up to the walking scene, like where the Straw Hats are walking to Arlong Park to take care of the problem. And then getting that build up to that one-on-one fight with Luffy and Arlong, it was incredible. Because like you're fighting a creature that you have no knowledge of fighting. You have no knowledge of ever meeting one. Yeah. And Luffy's like out there just trying to give it his best. Like doesn't care. Like he's gonna adapt to every fight the way he can by like stealing Arlong's teeth, using those as weapons.
Really cool.
Which was a cool scene. Like I liked that Luffy tried using Arlong to regrow teeth. Yeah. That was also cool. I don't remember if Arlong does, but I know he has a long battle sword kind of like it was like a sharp blade almost.
Yeah,
like
it's like
blade.
Multiple.
Yeah,
it's almost like his nose.
Yeah, it's like his nose, but that he used it as a sword, which I thought was a very cool weapon.
Yeah, it was.
I wish he would have used it more.
Yeah, I feel like the first time he pulled it out, Luffy broke it pretty fast. Like stopped it.
Which makes sense. Luffy just before that and Baratie just destroyed a freaking explosive battle spear. Yeah. After taking hit and explosion after explosion on him.
That is true.
Also, Arlong is an incredible battler. Using the ability, being able to use water and fling it at people and make them almost like a ninja star spear kind of style. Like they're coming right at you. That was incredible to see that type of technique. So he can fight with water. He can fight with his hands. He can fight with his teeth. He has a weapon. The guy can do everything without a devil fruit that a devil fruit user pretty much needs it for. Yeah. And has to fight with all these cool abilities, which it was bornly gifted with.
Yeah. Not to mention, he kind of hits every box. Design, cool, scary, frightening.
You're looking for hope to beat this guy.
The fight, the Luffy Arlong fight,
goes back and forth for a little bit.
It was interesting.
It was.
It was good. I'm not gonna say it was fantastic or anything, but it was really, really good. I really liked it. I also liked the scene where Luffy finds the room where Arlong made Nami draw the maps, and he sees the bloodstained pen and flips, and Arlong also freaks out earlier, I believe, and his eyes change. There's just a bunch of cool scenes in the fight itself.
After Luffy beats him and everything, you're truly you start earning this big respect for Luffy as a hero. You're like, oh man, this guy's gonna be possibly unstoppable. Nobody probably can beat Luffy.
That is true. Yeah, I did think to myself, if Luffy just beat Arlong, who's gonna beat Luffy?
That's why this next villain, main villain of Logtown. And I have a couple theories about Smoker. I will never bring them up. Yeah, maybe I'll do some side videos and I'll bring those up. Smoker, he fights with a devil fruit, the first Logia devil fruit. So there's 3 different types of devil fruits. You have your zone devil fruit. You have your Promethea devil fruit. That's what Buggy has. And Luffy has the gum fruit, which are both Prometheas that you're introduced early on. And then your first Logia fruit, which is like your elemental types of fruits. Anything that's like kind of elemental, like has to do with any sort of like... Yeah.
Sorry, continue.
Anything that has to do with like weathers or anything like typing or something like that, almost. Like you can be like Pokemon typing, and that's kind of like
okay.
materializing.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Elements.
Yeah. Is the smoke fruit, which is pretty cool. Like in this picture, he has that cigar, he's smoking, and it's also mixing with his devil fruit powers and everything because he controls smoke. He becomes smoke. He becomes vapor, pretty much. Also, he also fights, in my opinion. You're talking about Arlong before this as a well-rounded fighter. This man has a devil fruit and fights with a thing that is a kryptonite for devil fruits. That thing on his back that he has wrapped, he can touch that red part because he has it wrapped. But the rest of that spear is a sea stone prism spear. And what sea stone does for devil fruit users is pretty much cancels their devil fruit out. Like they cannot use their devil fruit, they cannot use their powers. So like in my opinion, when you're introduced to Smoker, he's that character that's truly a threat to this new adventure you're going to in the Grand Line. You're like he's gonna chase Luffy down. And it's awesome like how you're introduced to him with his abilities and his weaponries and just how big of a threat he was introduced to. And then Luffy just being able to have that, I wouldn't say luck, but have that hope always of escaping somehow, getting out of sticky situations somehow, always. And in that arc, he gets away from, doesn't really, one-on-one, Luffy technically loses every time they fight. Yeah. Like Luffy cannot beat this guy. He just keeps escaping. But Seth, where's your opinion on Smoker and how do you like him as a Marine, though?
I really liked Smoker. I thought he was cool. I don't have a lot to say about Smoker. His devil fruit power, controlling the smoke is cool. He's memorable. In
Lockdown, they fight. I think they see each other 3 times.
I think it's just twice, but right. They don't really fight.
No, because Luffy can't.
At first,
Luffy can't fight him. Like that impactful scene where he has Luffy captured and he's on top of him, and he's holding him hostage, and then all of a sudden that gust of wind, that character.
Oh yeah,
that's the last time they were introduced. Before that, I think it's one more time, and then Luffy somehow escapes in too. I want to say.
Overall,
he's a great villain. With that being said, with all those characters introduced and their characteristics and your opinion on those characters, for me, I have Alvida. I don't think she's a really big of a threat as a villain. I do like her as a villain. It all works out for her. Like she got beauty at the end of the day, and now she's beautiful at the end of the East Blue. Other than that, there's nothing that they have to worry about when she's around. Seth, who's your number 8?
I also got Alvida. She's just a little exposition at the beginning of the story. Quick, easy fight for Luffy. Nothing too special in my opinion, but I definitely like her more towards the end of the East Blue Saga after eating her devil fruit.
Yeah. All right. Now we're gonna move into number 7. Number 7, I think this is gonna be where me and Seth go different ways. Number 7 for me, I have Captain Morgan. Morgan, you meet him on early as a big egotistical villain. We go over that. He battles with the axe, but he's not really a threat because of how I feel about Kiro's backstory introduced to them. But you're also introduced to Captain Morgan later on with the side story between Garp, but Helmeppo and Kobe, and Helmeppo chasing after his father, trying to bring him back in, but ends up being a hostage. And pretty much Kobe has to try to save the day, but they both pretty much...
Number 7.
And why are they better than Alvida, in your opinion?
Now, keep in mind, this is a personal opinion list, just going off who I like. And I have reasons, but no strict criteria. This is just kind of pure how I'm feeling. Number 7, I've got Buggy. Uh, parody character. He's cool, funny. I'm always enjoying when he's on screen, but in terms of like a villain or a threat, he's alright. You know what I mean? He's cool. I like Buggy. I'm not hating.
There's
but,
hate.
But he's number 7. He's
There's
number
hate.
7 for me.
A lot of hate there, guys.
No.
All right. With that being said, we're going to have to get the vibes back up over here. Number 6. I know I just pretty much gave this guy like 5 stars, made him very like overpowered as a character. The only reason I have him right here at 6, you don't really get a lot of details of him early on, besides like him being powerful and all this and everything. And that's Smoker. I have, and I know that's going to hurt a lot of people. A lot of people are saying, this again, is like Seth said before, this isn't a power level list like who we think the strongest is. Getting more enlightened with the character of a villain, like why we like this villain and what's so cool about him. I know Smoker, just that little period of time you get introduced to him, he's much more, to me, at that time, much more of a nuisance, of like an irritation of a character. Like, come on, dude, you're not gonna...
Valid.
Like, are you really gonna stop Luffy? Like, why is Luffy your biggest priority just because he's the rookie of the year in the East Blue right now? And you're going out of your way, you gotta go capture him to make good credibility for yourself. Which is new, that's his job at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And he's very powerful, like he has that cigar and everything. But just that little period of time in Lockdown, you don't get enough details about him. You're not really built up for Smoker.
Yeah.
Which you are, but you're not. I know I'm contradicting myself.
I know. I've contradicted myself multiple times, but that's why I had to just put it out there. This is a personal opinion, okay?
Yeah. And I want you guys to come at me in the comments. Why?
Yeah, dude, for real.
Why you guys do that?
Yeah.
Y'all
are not going to like my list.
With that being said, Seth, let them have your number 6.
I actually have Smoker at 6 too, believe it or not. I swear to God. No, not really a villain. Just sort of like an annoyance to the Straw Hats throughout Logtown. Like, you know, you don't really get... I feel like you don't get like a good definitive fight, but like you do kind of. It's just... I don't know. I enjoy Smoker. I also was captivated every time Smoker was on screen. I'm curious about him, but I just don't have any attachment to him because I don't know. He's just, you don't get a lot of him. I have no reason to be attached to him yet, you know, as a villain. And I don't mean attached as in I like them.
But when they come on the screen, you're like, oh shit,
like,
there they are.
Yeah.
When he came on the screen, for me, like, I'm trying to...
Yeah, I was curious.
I'm like,
I definitely wanted to know
more annoyed. I'm like, okay, dude.
Yeah.
You got him, you got Buggy. It was that whole Logtown seemed more of like escape mission. Like, we're just leaving. We're just coming to stop by for a few minutes and then get the plank out of here.
And I'll also say maybe him and Buggy could switch on my list. So far throughout the East Blue, he has played a bigger role in the story, but just, you know, just how I'm feeling.
Okay. With that being said, guys, here we are. Moment of truth. We're both in our top 5. This is the top 5 villains from our personal opinion of who we think is a great villain in the East Blue Saga. I was really talking this guy up. I have Kiro as number 5. I like Kiro as a character. To me, he's the first, honestly, threat. Like, you're like curious on his mind and how he thinks and everything. And his personality, honestly, as a villain, is phenomenal. Plays right into the role. Plays the role like, hey, I know I gotta be pretty liked in this town, well known, but I gotta be, just keep everything to myself. Let them know who I am as a butler, but I'm not letting them know, hey, deep down inside, I'm Captain Kiro. And I like that. I like that about him. Seth, where is your number 5, and who is it, and why are they better villain than the ones below this?
Coming in at my number 5, believe it or not, I actually have Kiro there too.
Okay. We're pretty much like the list. There's not really a lot to choose from villain-wise.
Yeah. I have Kiro at 5 as well.
We probably could have done a top 5 list.
Yeah, probably, honestly. I have Kiro at 5 as well. He's menacing, weird, cool, powerful. I would say compared to every other One Piece villain so far, he's the most calculated. You know, the whole Axan Morgan thing is really cool also, but I don't know. He's cool.
Yeah.
I like him.
I see. All right, we'll go to number 4.
Scary.
Yes, they're all scary. I mean,
look at that pose. That knocked him down like 3 slots for me.
Nah, that should bring him up.
You know, who's to say?
Yeah, who's to say? All right, as for number 4, the reason why this character's number 4 and not a little bit higher for me, and would have been higher if we didn't add certain characters to this list. Number 4 for me is Don Creed. I like Don Creed. I like what he is built by. He's built to be up the opposite as Luffy. Like, you need to use your wealth and your fame to bring more in, to bring more assets, to build a bigger crew, and that's going to make you stronger. You're going to have valuable weapons, superior armor, and you're going to be unstoppable from the neck down with whatever you have on you. Pretty much, that's how I feel with Don Creed, and he's a big threat. Like you're introduced to him as a threat. He went to the Grand Line, which takes a great pirate to get to the Grand Line. That's what you're introduced to, and then he comes back, and you're like, oh man, like he's that guy. Like, oh, he has explosive weaponry, gas. He's strategic also, but in a different way. But he doesn't care about anything. Like he will even put his own crew out to die. The gas scene where he throws the gas and his whole crew is like, oh, they're either putting the gas mask on or some of them dying with the gas. That's like, man, the guy doesn't even care at that point. He's just truly out there trying to kill and get the Barate for what he needs it for as his new ship. Seth, with that being said, who's your number 4 and why are they?
Hot take, maybe. I don't know. I probably am overrating him, but Axan Morgan.
That's all right. It's your opinion, dog.
To me, Axan Morgan feels like the first actual, like, you know, a first villain always is kind of like impactful, and Alvida wasn't that. Axan Morgan more filled that role for me. You know what I mean? Like, the first real villain, in my opinion, who has a little bit of, like, power, you know what I mean? Which I went over earlier. Axan Morgan being the first Marine encounter for Luffy. And the Marines are a big deal in the show, and they're only, pretty sure they're only gonna grow. And Axan Morgan is your introduction into that, which I feel is huge, and it's cool. And,
yeah, he's a hero looked like for the average people, but deep down inside, he's a villain.
He's a menace, yeah.
Yeah. With that being said, let's move to the top 3. And here we are with our top 3. In this video, we talked about them in details. So we'll just do the top 3 very quickly, and we'll just give you a brief description on why we have them there. So my number 3 is Dracula Mihawk. I liked him as a villain. He's very mysterious. He comes in, he does what he needs to do, wipes out a whole pirate ship in one slice, and honestly takes care of Zoro, who is known as a very powerful character early on. When you get introduced to Alvida, Captain Morgan, other people already knew Zoro's name before you're really truly introduced to Zoro. Him being fairly well known also in that one-on-one fight, I think that's one of the greater scenes early on, and having that impactful scene both ways. And he ends up wanting to see Zoro succeed and take him over later down the road. And that's the cool part. Like you as the viewer is waiting for that moment now, for them to meet up again. Yeah. And like you said, meeting up with Shanks and all that's pretty cool also. But as the character, mysterious, powerful, you know, like you don't really want to mess with this guy as a warlord, as one of the 7 warlords of the sea. Seth, who's your number 3 and why?
For my number 3, I have Don Creed. And we already touched on this earlier, but I really like how he was hyped up to begin with. When he pulled up, I liked the discussion about, should we feed this guy? Well, if we feed him, he's gonna get the energy and he's gonna kill us. Sanji ends up feeding him anyway. It was the wrong thing to do. They should have let him die. And I don't know. I feel like that whole aspect of it is very very villainous. Very good, very cool. His suit, his armor, his weapons, everything about him cool, strategic, cool. He's a dickhead. Yeah. What else is there to say about Don Creek?
Yeah. With that being said, we'll move to our final two. I think we both have one guy still left that we're probably both similar on, and then our second guy's a little bit off. My number two is Buggy. Buggy the Clown. I like Buggy. You're introduced. He's hilarious. He's another, like, I don't think he's psychotic in a way that he shows it off to be, but he's kind of portrayed pretty psychotic in his own little way, like in a humorous way. And I don't think he's like a threat to society or anything to the world. But what he's introduced to and the impact that he plays in the show early on in the East Blue, and being the first reoccurring character that comes back into the series as already introduced as a villain, and also the villain that has its own little side series throughout the series. Also, it was entertaining to watch all the way through. I like the way his character design is as a clown, like with him actually having a round nose as his nose, and not like as like a little prop being there.
I just want to say, his nose is disgusting in the live action.
Oh yeah, they add like the features and stuff to it.
Gross.
And I like that Buggy is the first pirate also that actually has like crew members that fight with him, and then he is building his crew the same as Luffy. Like he's adding more members with Alvida joining his crew later on.
Yeah.
With that being said, I don't need to talk too much more about Buggy. If you're One Piece viewer, you know Buggy. If you watch the East Blue Saga, you know Buggy. Everybody knows Buggy. Who is your number two and why?
Coming in at number two, I'm trying to think of a name for him. I have Arlong. I don't know. Does he have like a nameless Fishman Arlong? Yeah, there it is.
Oh, I think they call him that. I forgot what they call him.
Coming in at number two, I have Arlong, and Arlong is the best villain, without a doubt, so far in the East Blue. I touched on Arlong pretty in depth. My personal opinions. I did forget to mention the fact that Arlong is actually built up very, very well too before Arlong Park. With Nami seeing the wanted poster with Arlong on it, Nami dipping for some reason, and you know the whole way Arlong is introduced, down to how he's defeated, and yada yada yada, all the in between. Arlong's awesome.
With that being said, we are moving to our final number one. I thought we would have the same number one here. Now I know that you don't have the same number one. That's all right. My number one is Arlong. When you're introduced to Arlong, you know he's the biggest threat in the East Blue. You got to get to him, past him to get to the Grand Slimes. But it built up in the story also. It's very impactful, very emotional. Like Seth said early on about the scene with Nami and how that plays out. That also plays out in a way that builds up his character as a threat, more impactful for you as the viewer.
It makes you hate Arlong that much more because you're like
you want
to
see him get beat up, but like the build up of him being a fishman and introduced as a fishman, he can beat you on land and beat you on the sea. That's like you're scared. Your hope of the characters in the story. The beating them is not optimistic.
It seems pretty bad,
Yeah. So you're like, no matter like how Luffy's guts are, and he can keep going out there to fight. It's just the assets of you're going against somebody who is known on paper to be better. But like Luffy fights with a bigger heart than a lot of people understand. That's the cool part about that fight. But Arlong, hands down, character has everything that you want in a villain. Seth, with that being said, I know who your number one is. How about you let the viewers know and bring why?
My number one is Dracula Mihawk. How can it be anything else? Okay, look. I know I've said multiple times in this video that Arlong is the best villain. That's because in my head, I don't even really consider Mihawk a villain. Now, he is a foe at one point in time because I've liked every single thing I've seen about him so far. He fucking destroys Zoro with a sword that big. He splits Don Krieg's fleet in half. I don't think it's just one ship. I'm pretty sure he like just fucked the whole.
He's the guy that took care of Don Krieg's fleet.
Yeah, his whole.
That's why he comes to the East Blue.
Mm-hmm.
And Dracula Mihawk is the reason why he was in the East Blue, because he was following Don Krieg.
And this isn't just a power ranking video, okay? I'm saying all this power stuff. That's why he's number one. That's not
you like his threat level.
That's not just why he's number one, okay?
Not just his
the way he carries himself is really, really cool. Okay,
his humbleness.
He's dark, mysterious, a little edgy, maybe, but also
straight edge.
No, not straight edge.
Straight edge like CM Punk.
Not straight edge because he's drinks a beer with the boys, and that's what I mean. I don't know if that's really a trait I like necessarily, but in
doesn't have to worry about anybody else.
In Mihawk's case, I like it. It's really cool. He's just on his own. He got his little sword to fillet his little fish with, and his big sword to split fucking to part the sea.
Yeah, his big black blade.
And which is a cross too, and he also wears a Jesus piece, which is like it's just fire, dude. It's just drip. Like he looks cool. He's powerful. He's down to drink with the boys.
He has that like vampire-ish name, but with like crosses all over the place.
Yeah, it doesn't.
He even floats on a fucking casket in the sea,
which is cool. That's cool as
hell. Like it doesn't even care.
That's
like
so
he's on
cool.
this smaller ship than the Going Merry and just doesn't care.
Look, man, this is an oversaid word these days, but just aura. Okay, just
the guy got definitely 9,000 plus aura.
He's
OP.
just so cool.
Power levels over 9,000 of aura.
Even if he was weak, he would still be really cool to me. Like even if he was weak, he'd still be cool to me. I don't know. He's just a cool character. I really like Dracula Mihawk. That's why I had to put him at number one.
All right. With that being said, everybody, we gave you our list. We hope you honestly respect our opinion on why we picked these villains and where they're at.
If you don't,
if you don't, show us your list of East Blue villains and why you picked them in there. Put them in the comments. Let us know. We would love to see them. We'll read through them and we'll do more. Maybe we'll do another video of East Blue characters all together and we'll do like a top 10. Go back through and do each arc and why the arc itself is so much more meaningful and certain things like that. Look at the background, people. You see all the islands in the East Blue? That's just one place, one little saga. And you're going to a next one, the Alabasta saga, which is next, and you're introduced to a bunch more locations.
Also, do you see this right here? That's where the whale was hitting his head.
Yep, yeah, in the red line.
Somewhere.
On the other side of Reverse Mountain.
The other side.
You gotta go up Reverse Mountain. Seth, do you have anything else to say to the viewers, to the dogs?
Nope, not really. Like, subscribe for more because there's gonna be more.
There's gonna be more.
All kinds of links in the description. We don't know what they are.
Yeah, make sure you read the description. We'll have some links. We'll have our stream there too. We do stream. So come stop by, have a good time. We're just here, we're just a couple of dogs, just chilling, just having time. So with that being said, thanks for stopping by. And I hope you have a great D-Dog day.